Our motto at SimpliSafe is to help secure every home. And so today, our wireless home security systems allow our customers to secure their home all by themselves. We offer fair and honest prices, and we don't really tie anybody into contracts, which is sort of traditionally has been very commonly used in the home security space. Um, our mission helps protect a little over 3 million people today, and we believe we have a long way to go. Our company's perspective on treating customers right and delivering great product and service experiences has won us many accolades. And recently, CNET and PC Magazine chose our product to be the editor choice in Best in Home Security System category. And I think we still have a long way to go here, and we hope to continue to drive the transformation in the home security space. When we started off with the journey of transforming our apps, we did not have any lofty aspirations. We were not fantasizing about being number one in the App Store. Rather, we were trying to figure out how can we help our customers better secure their homes using the SimpliSafe app. To walk us through this journey, I wanted to just break down our journey into three distinct phases. And I hope this would help have a decent dialogue with just the journey itself as well. So we started off by asking ourselves, how can the SimpliSafe app help us make every home secure? Our customers have many different ways of interacting with their home security system. They have a keypad, which goes right near their front door or by their bedside, which has a nice display, and it allows users to pretty much engage with their system, to turn it on, to turn it off, change settings, et cetera, et cetera. So there was a full user interface right at your front door via this keypad. People had key fobs that they could use, that they could carry around, and they could engage with their system quite easily. So where does the app fit in? That was one of the first questions we started asking. Then we dug deeper to understand where we were doing well. What aspects of the app were helping our customers? How does the app fit into the overall ecosystem and the experience our customers were having with home security? As we dug deeper, we understood that our current app back then had a really simple user interface. It's shown on the right over there. It was very easy to use, and it was great at doing its primary job, which was helping users arm or secure their home from anywhere. But that was it. That was the key task it was doing. It was doing that really well, but that was the only thing it was doing. We learned that our customers were having a fantastic experience on our hardware, which we had developed in partnership with IDEO. And so we were fairly confident that the hardware was doing its job right. Then we dug deeper into what we were not doing that well. We learned that certain tasks that users needed to do with the app, it was just taking too long. There were other tasks which were not possible at all. We were not enabling users to do everything that they needed to. Our business is primarily driven by service, and our app, which is where most people go to activate their service, it wasn't doing its job very well in terms of helping people select the service plan that they would like. A majority of users that come to us for home security are new to the category. They're buying their first home security system. Our app wasn't really doing a great job of onboarding these users. It was not telling them or helping them learn more about our systems and services, nor was it helping them secure their home. So we understood that we had a long way to go. And we didn't have to dig too deep or go very far to get
all these insights. In fact, we just had to ask the right people and look into the right data sources which were readily available to us. We talked to our engineers, we talked to our marketers, we perused through all of our App Store ratings, and we got some really interesting insights. We realized that most of our App Store ratings had nothing to do with the app at all. In fact, people were talking about bad experiences they had with our customer support team. People complained, especially around the holidays when hold times were pretty high. They used the App Store as a way to voice their frustration. Even some of the positive reviews were around how easy the system was to set up, how easy it was for somebody to just take a sensor out of the box, peel the label off it, and then stick it on the wall. Had nothing to do with the app at all. And so that sort of taught us that App Store ratings are only part of the puzzle in terms of delivering great experiences and keeping users on the platform. We talked to our leaders, senior leaders in the customer support team. We listened to phone conversations. We listened in on phone conversations with our customers. And we solicited feedback from our customer support personnel who are talking to customers all the time. The insights we learned were truly revealing. We also ran quantitative surveys, both with our existing users and users who don't have security today. I think the most interesting learnings came from users who had recently canceled service. And as we dug deeper into some of these quantitative surveys, we got a better understanding of why people were thinking, even starting to think about canceling their service plan. So after sort of digging through all the internal data sources we had and sort of reflecting onto where we could go, we got out onto the field and started engaging with our customers. We started off by interviewing our current paying customers. We talked to users who use the app almost on a daily basis, others who would use it only when they were not at home, maybe once a week, maybe once a month. We even talked to users who said that they didn't know that SimpliSafe had an app. So there was a very wide cross-section of users that we interviewed. We talked to customers who had recently canceled service. And we also talked to customers who used home security products from other companies to try and understand what expectations were from the existing home security user base. And in these interviews, we were focused more on the emotions that customers were having with home security. We heard stories from a dad talking about how his home security system was keeping his loved one secure while he was away on business trips. We heard someone else talk about how they felt that their valuables at home were always secure because they had a home security system. We heard from a young entrepreneur how the home security app allows him to be in control of his home. It sort of empowered him to always have control over his house. Those were the kinds of emotions that we were able to gather from some of these interviews. Via these interviews, we were also able to sort of determine the exact role our app would have to play in a user's journey with home security, and then dig deeper into the current challenges customers were facing with our app. In some of these interview sessions, we also had our users participate in design exercises. We had really interesting learnings from these design exercises. When we gave our users a blank slate and asked them to design the home security app of their dreams, most people came up with an app that would have been just a single page with enough controls or enough options to overwhelm even a commercial jetliner pilot. Just put everything on one page, and that was their app.
So that wasn't exactly useful. But what this exercise enabled us to do was to try to get to all the different tasks users wanted to do with their app. And as we dug deeper, we were able to better understand the priority and the order in which people wanted to do some of these tasks. And that was very helpful for us as we dug deeper into actually designing what we wanted to build. We were able to deprioritize tasks which users didn't really feel they needed, or ones that only a handful of users actually even put into the app of their dreams. And with each of these features they were designing, we dug deeper to understand the emotions that they were driving as well, because that's what could instantly translate to a wider audience or a better way of presenting itself. The last panel talked a lot about metrics and KPIs and how you would strike the right balance between a brand or a business's focus and user experience. We had to think deeply about this as well. As I mentioned earlier, our company is built on services. And so from a business perspective, lifetime value is extremely important to us. But if we were sort of focusing purely on lifetime value, and if we were optimizing for, let's say, average revenue per user, I think we would see some strong wins in the short term. But over a longer period of time, as customers start realizing that they are spending more than what they should be on our products and services, or if they start realizing that the value they're getting from the money they're spending isn't matching expectations, then you're going to lose them and you're going to start seeing churn. So that's where we had to sort of strike the right balance between business KPIs and experience KPIs. And so for this initiative that we wanted to embark on in terms of transforming our app, we dug deep into figuring out what are these key experience KPIs that we would want to track. And we came up with this idea of a happiness score that would help us sort of evaluate the overall high-level experience the app was driving. And we would measure that using App Store ratings and then in-app NPS surveys. To better help us evaluate the impact of individual initiatives or A/B tests we were running, we came up with this per app initiative score that we would measure at the end of a favorable action or an initiative we were driving. That would help us determine if a single initiative was a success or a failure. And then, of course, churn was going to be a leading indicator for us that would eventually tell us if what we have built or what we had done is the right thing or not. So for every initiative we wanted to do as part of this transformation, we chose the right mix. And we picked it based on our understanding of our customers and our business. And I'm sure every one of you, as you work for your own firm or with your clients, you would have to sort of figure out what the right mix is for your business as well. So after sort of gathering user feedback and thinking through how we would measure success with it, we had to now convince the rest of the organization that we have to go build all of this now. And that wasn't easy. Thinking through this or looking back at what we did, I think one of the key learnings for us personally was that we actually sold the long-term impact of our initiatives. Focusing just on the short term might seem easier, and I wanted to sort of demonstrate why that could be wrong in some cases with an example. So based on our research, we learned that some users want to make sure that their home security system is working okay. So they want to just be able to go to the app, and the app should just tell them, hey, everything looks to be okay and you're all set. We prototyped a feature like that and we tested it with users. Current users told us that it was too much in their face and it was constantly telling them, hey, one of your sensors is not working or your system's battery is low. And they were frustrated. They were like, I want to go into the app and I want to just turn on my system and that's all I wanted to do. Or I wanted to just look into my cameras. I don't care about the batteries being low. I'll deal with that later. Now, that's the short-term perspective from the user. But if you think a little long-term, the same user, if they have a break-in, and if one of their sensors doesn't work, or if their cameras don't work, that's very meaningful, right? Like you've now failed them in that moment that really matters. So that was the longer term perspective. In the short term, yes, this feature is going to be frustrating for some users, but longer term, it's going to help us deliver a much better experience for them and potentially create stickier customers that of course spread the word and help us get more customers as well. In addition to focusing on the long term, another key observation for us was that if everybody seems to like the ideas you're presenting, then you're probably doing something wrong or things are not just right. In fact, we wanted us to be challenged in terms of the ideas we were presenting, and we wanted to have engaging conversations to help us determine how we could make our ideas even better. So when we engaged with other key stakeholders in the company, we didn't go in thinking that we had the right solution. We went in with an open mind, and we wanted to be challenged. So make sure that you always set a really high bar for yourself as you transform some of your user learnings into designs and into key initiatives that you want to drive through the rest of the organization. Having clear objectives and measurable outcomes go a long way, especially when you're trying to sell your initiative to the rest of your organization, your board of directors, people who may not be thinking exclusively about customer experience or user experience. So having clear objectives and outcomes go a long way. And when challenged on figuring out how you can do what you're proposing to do in the least amount of time or with the least amount of resources as possible, we think you should bias your decision towards building the right product. Ask yourself, is this the right way to build the feature, or is this the right way you would want to deliver the feature to your customer? It might be painful in the short term. You may have to fight a lot to get or secure the resources, but long term, it's going to lead to a much better customer experience. And when in doubt, always think about how a customer might approach this problem. What would they think if you built a feature a certain way, or if you didn't build it at all? And use that story to sort of narrate to the rest of your organization and to try to convince them on why we should be doing or why we should be investing in an initiative like this. So our overall transformation of the app required a lot of time for us. It took us over a year, and it locked down a significant portion of our company's app developers. And so we had to do a lot of convincing here. And these were just some of the learnings from the work we had to do to get the buy-in. So now that we had talked to customers, we had gathered internal data, we had analyzed all of that, we had come up with initial designs, it was time for us to start implementing. We had the team signed off, we had the budget, we had the money to spend on A/B tests, et cetera, and we got cranking. It took us, as I mentioned earlier, a little over a year to take the app from the one with the blue background here to the one on the right. The app on the left started off with about a 3.1 star rating in the App Store, and the one on the right today is at about 4.8 stars. And we didn't transform the app in a single go. In fact, there were many steps that we had to go through. There were many iterations. I want to say the app actually evolved from the one on the left to the one on the right over the period of a year. So sort of our mantra here was to test a lot, test early, test often, and test enough so that you keep failing and then you learn from it. As an example, we started off by sort of changing the background color of our app from being all blue to sort of this light gray background. When we released that app to select users, our existing user base was up in arms. They said that the light colors are harsher on their eyes, and they sort of liked the blue a lot more. So when you change the status quo, I think that's sort of expected reaction. People didn't like it. But when we A/B tested the two iterations or the two different versions with new users, overwhelmingly, most new users preferred the lighter gray approach. They thought the app looked much more cleaner and much more sleek here. So that sort of told us that short term, yes, there is going to be some amount of pain, but longer term, we are probably in the right track and we are meeting expectations from users who are coming to our platform for the first time. And so as you can see, the app sort of started off very simple, just the background color change. Then we added a single card that would show you the most recent recording one of your cameras captured. Then we added the ability to interact with your smart lock through our app dashboard. Then we added a tile at the top that would sort of tell you if everything was okay with your system and warn you if something was not working right. So these were all sort of slow transformational changes that we made over the course of a year or so. As I mentioned earlier, we were relying heavily on per app initiative scores to help us determine if something we were releasing or about to release was going to be successful or not. And we did this through very simple surveys in the app. Single question with a 5-star rating option for the user and a field for them to leave feedback. So at the end of a particular action the user would take, we would pop up this survey and we would ask them how their interaction has been. And as we did many of these surveys, we learned that we had to keep the overall survey design to look and feel exactly the same. Otherwise, we were sort of biasing the results. So for the majority of the work we did, we had the exact same questions served to customers as we iterated through various designs and various new features. There are a number of off-the-shelf tools you could use to run these surveys in the app if you wanted to do something really quick and dirty, or you could choose to build some of these yourself in-house as well. When it comes to A/B testing, I think in the marketing world, A/B testing sort of comes naturally to everybody. You're constantly running A/B tests to figure out ways of optimizing your business outcomes. But on the user experience side, it's a little more tricky. Companies like Facebook and Google do this or strive to do this all the time. But at least in our world, in SimpliSafe, we weren't used to really running A/B tests to optimize around user experience outcomes. This was one of the first projects where we started doing that. And we sort of measured user experience outcomes via 3 different touch points, as I've called out here. We looked at the number of clicks a user was trying to perform an action. We looked at task completion rate. So let's say a customer wanted to check in on their cameras. We would give that as a challenge to a set of users and see how many actually completed the challenge. We would track task satisfaction rating using some of the survey techniques that I talked about earlier. This allowed us to set or get the metrics right in terms of optimizing for business outcomes, such as activation rate, et cetera, but also the overall user experience, which means over a longer period of time, we would have stickier customers and we would have more overall revenue and retention rates. A/B testing didn't really come naturally to our iOS and Android developers. In fact, engineers don't like to fail. So we had to do a lot of convincing to get them to try out A/B tests. In fact, this is an example of an A/B test that we ran very early in the process, which helped out a lot in convincing our engineers. So the three designs you see here are for a simple screen that would allow a customer to choose the right service plan that they wanted. The control flow was what we had in the app back then. It was very simple. It resembled sort of like a checklist. We had a new variation that was based on user research, telling us that this simple layout didn't give users all the information they needed. So we had a much more richer experience with a lot of imagery, a lot of text and copy explaining all the different features. You could swipe right and left to walk through all of these features, et cetera, et cetera. And then we had variation B, which was fairly simple, but it used iconography and a little more descriptive text to walk users through all the different features. When we sort of asked the engineers which one of these three variations would win, a majority of them picked variation A. And they were so convinced that variation A would win that they took the extra step of making sure that all the different transitions were working right, and it truly looked and felt beautiful. But to our surprise, the control flow actually won, and it won quite well over the other two variations. And that sort of taught us and our engineers that an engaging flow in certain parts of a customer's journey may not really matter or may not be doing the right thing for us from a business perspective. What we were seeing was in the activation flow, variation A was getting people to ask more questions. People were now wondering, okay, do I really want this, or would I be happier with a different plan? People were starting to get confused. Whereas in this simple control approach here, there was literally two options, and the options were presented in a very simple manner, where there was one leading question that sort of asked you, hey, do you want the ability to completely control your home from anywhere, or do you just want professional monitoring? And it was easy. It was a binary choice for them. So that flow won, and it sort of convinced our engineers that A/B tests can really reveal good insights from a user experience standpoint as well as from a business perspective. These days, they refuse to work on any feature initiative without thoroughly testing it in terms of A/B tests, or at least prototyping it. So that was like a transformational cultural change for us at SimpliSafe, which we were able to leverage just by thinking deeply about testing. And so over a long period of time, over a course of 7 to 8 months, we were able to release a lot of features and a lot of updates to the app. And we got to a point where all of our internal metrics via in-app surveys, in-app NPS scores, were indicating that people were having a fairly decent experience with us. That's when we started driving people to leave reviews in the App Store. Now, the main reason we wanted to drive reviews to the App Store was because in the future, we wanted to use App Store ratings as a way to track overall customer experience scores. And we knew that the existing ratings back then, most of them didn't have anything to do with the app. So by driving ratings directly from the app, we were hoping to see much more app-based reviews appear in the App Store. We chose to drive reviews at the end of certain key user journeys. So when a user completes a certain journey, let's say they arm their system and they've successfully done so, we would suggest to them, hey, if you are interested, you could leave us a review here, and we would take them there. Now, this would get you tons of ratings, but without having a strong product backing you up, you wouldn't really be able to leverage that. So do think deeply about that. Make sure you build a great product before driving reviews. And as a quick insight, Apple actually allows you to wipe your slate clean and start from scratch. So you can go in and reset your ratings if you do have less than optimal ratings. And so you can start from scratch once you've built up a really strong product, and you can see better ratings come in. On the Android side, Google recently announced some changes to the way they calculate their App Store ratings. So now these days, recent reviews are much more heavily weighted, and reviews that other customers have said are helpful to them are given more weightage as well. So just a couple of insights into how you can leverage the way ratings are calculated to improve your App Store ratings as well. So with that, I wanted to conclude and thank you for patiently listening through this. Overall, it's been a really great journey for us, and we truly believe that we've been able to transform our customers' experience by delivering them a great app, and they are thanking us by leaving positive reviews for us in the App Store. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? Just raise your hand. A quick question on your earlier short versus long term. The new users were liking this particular app version. The old users were not. If it was reversed, would you have still gone that way?
Good question. I think in that particular case, we might have still gone that way. Because I think we were also looking at how apps were being reviewed by the press. And we knew that some of our reviews did point out that our app was looking a bit dated and old. So we did want to change. And one of the main reasons why it looked a bit dated and old was because of the design and the color choices. So our brand was evolving, and it was a transformational change for us from a branding perspective as well. So we would have gone ahead with the change.
Great. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Rahul.